Hello, everyone, and happy First Chapter Friday. Today I'm going to be sharing the first chapter of The Lovely and the Lost by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Chapter 1. St. Jude was the patron saint of impossible causes. My foster brother took his namesake very seriously. In the 11 years since his mother had found me, half wild and dying in a ravine, I had never once known Jude to throw in the towel when the odds were stacked against him. Jude Bennett had never met a lost cause he did not immediately embrace with the whole of his overly optimistic soul. I was a testament to that sometimes endearing, sometimes frustrating aspect of Jude's personality. And so was the fact that he was currently standing in the middle of a party at Hangman's Ridge, holding an old-school boombox over his head and blasting 80s music in the direction of a girl who literally did not know his name. As in, I had literally heard her call him Kyle. Twice. Boys still insisting that Kyle is a nickname for Jude? Free came to stand beside me, leaning back against the truck. She shook her long blonde hair back over her shoulder and crossed one ankle over the other as she hooked her thumbs through the belt loops on her faded jeans. He's moved on from nickname to term of endearment, I said, watching as Jude punched a fist into the sky. Remind me to limit his consumption of 80s movies going forward. Won't help, Free opined, reaching up to swat at a mosquito on her arm. Katie say anything to you about whether or not she's going to let the military have Pat? Free didn't believe in segues between one subject and the next. Not a word, I said, taking my eyes off Jude long enough to get a better look at Free. Why? Did she say something to you? Pad, short for Padawan, Jude's choice of a name, not mine, was a 14-month-old golden retriever and quicker on the uptake than any other dog we'd trained. Jude and Free were holding out hope that Katie, Jude's mother and my foster mother, would keep our star pupil. But every time I took Pat out, I could feel her energy, her determination. She needed to run, to track, to find. She needed more than we could give her. I'm not Katie's favorite person at the moment, Free admitted, on account of the fact that we had a fundamental disagreement. Free was as prone to disagreement as Jude was to optimism. She was the most stubborn person I'd ever met. And that woman who'd raised me was number 2. Jude insisted that crossing horns was their way of expressing affection. Was this disagreement about the fact that you haven't been to school in over a week? I asked Free. Free shrugged. She was infamous in the Chester Falls public school system for 2 things: her perfect test scores and her less than perfect attendance. Free had a system. She aced every single test given during the semester, then skipped finals altogether, ultimately pulling home C's in every class. Free's parents, when this was first brought to their attention, had declared that they respected their daughter's individuality and the right to make her own decisions. Katie, needless to say, did not. Our property backed up to the Morrows, and Free had spent as much time at our place growing up as she had at her own. Katie didn't treat her any different than she treated Jude and me, and that meant that she and Free had their share of fundamental disagreements. You could just ask the teachers to let you take makeup tests, I pointed out. Then you wouldn't need to ask me whether or not Katie was selling Pat to an Army search and rescue unit. You could ask her yourself. Free did not dignify that comment with a response. Instead, she nodded her head toward Jude. It appears our boy has drawn the attention of some unsavory types. It took me 2 seconds to analyze the situation. Jude was standing in the midst of 3 very large, very angry townies. And being Jude, he appeared to be challenging them to a dance-off. I pushed off the truck and headed for trouble. Free followed at a lazy pace. I assure you, gentlemen, proving yourselves to be better dancers than me would stick it to me far worse than any act of physical violence possibly could. My foster brother offered his would-be assailants a conspiratorial smile. I'm not saying that I'm the second coming of Fred Astaire, but I'm also not denying it. One of the townies reached for Jude. I got there first, stepping between them. The townie, 21 or 22, Too old to be at a high school party and too stupid to know it. Barely managed to stop himself from ramming his knuckles into my face. Jude was a head and a half taller than me, 6'2" to my 5' nothing. He was gangly. I was small and dangerous. Well, 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 the townie said, looking back at his friends, bleary-eyed and clearly amused. What do we have here? I said nothing, but I could feel a familiar emotion unwinding inside of me. An old friend come out to play. These idiot boys didn't know what it was like to fight tooth and nail for survival. They didn't know what happened when you cornered an animal in its lair. They didn't know that the biggest dog wasn't always the one in charge. Man, one of those other townies said, laughing, I'd watch out for this one, Dave. She has the crazy eyes. I didn't move. Didn't stop staring at the lot of them. Didn't so much as blink. All around us, the other partygoers began to realize what was going on. If Jude's assailants had been a few years younger, they might have realized too. I had a bit of a reputation. Gentlemen, Jude said behind me, this is what is known as a situation. I would suggest that you take a step or two back, and then I can assure you, with an entirely moderate degree of accuracy, that this will probably not get ugly. The party had gone completely silent, except for the music and the distant sound of the river down below. We were maybe 10 feet from the edge of the ridge, 100 feet above the river, 9.6 miles as the crow flew away from the ravine where Katie had found me 11 years before. And if we don't step back, one of the boys taunted. My upper lip wanted to pull back. Only years of social conditioning let me push down the urge to growl. Seriously, one of the townies said to Jude, a note of nervousness creeping into his tone at the expression on my face. What's wrong with her? Nothing's wrong with Kira, Jude said cheerfully. I mean, who among us doesn't have anger management issues and difficulty socializing in the human world? Am I right? He laid his hand on my shoulder, a warm and steady weight. Familiar. Home. And just like that, I was 5 years old again, and 6, and 7. And Jude was the one person in this world that I trusted. Back then, I wouldn't have stared down the bullies. Back then, I would have attacked. Dude, one of the townies said under his breath, is she the one they found in the forest all those years ago? The one who'd forgotten how to speak? The one who'd fended for herself for who knows how long? And on that note, Free said, stepping forward, let's break this little love fest up. Even clad in Levi's and a ratty blue t-shirt, Free was the kind of girl that guys looked at and then looked at again. It wasn't the thick blonde hair falling in carefree waves past her chest. It wasn't her full lips or deep brown eyes. It wasn't even the hips beneath the jeans. It was her confidence. It was the fact that Free Morrow walked through life knowing that she could ace any test it threw at her, and didn't much care either way. She bent down and picked up Jude's boombox. Who wants to dance?